Okay. Yes, we are live. So, thank you, each and every one of you who are here with us. I want to introduce Astra. Astra is the representative from Singapore Science Centre. Okay, but let me just do something first. I'm trying to share. Okay, let me create a watch party. Okay. Okay. A very good evening to each and every one of you viewers out there. Thank you again for joining us for this session of Parenting Tips. From next week onwards, I will be rebranding. So every Thursday from 9 o'clock, it will be Mom's Conversations. So tonight, wherever you are, it's going to be a very interesting session where we have a representative from our beloved Singapore Science Centre. I mean, Science Centre has very special memories for me because it's a place where a subject literally comes alive, And so we have, as our invited guest, Astra. Astra has been with Science Centre for 6 years. She is not just their representative, but I think she anchors this particular area called KidsSTOP, where it's specially designed for kids 8 years and under. So parents, if you want to increase that interest in your child for science, get them moving and learning through play. Yeah. So, Astra, do you want to share a little? Hi. Thank you for joining us. Do you? Okay. Wait. Let me just talk to the viewers a bit more. And so at the end of this, Singapore Science Centre will be giving a tote bag and a notebook, and you can go to the Science Centre and collect when they reopen. So they are waiting to hear when the government will give them the go ahead. Yeah. So meanwhile, can I just have a hi from everyone? Once you're here, just type hi, just to give us a sense. If you have any questions, Astra, the expert, is going to answer all your questions about why is playing fun? Like, really? Playing is encouraged more than academic? What's the balance? So these are things that we will actually answer. Hi, Limi. Okay, so, okay, Astra, if you can just take us into understanding, why KidsSTOP was created 6 years ago. What's the intention?
Okay, so KidsSTOP was created back then because they felt that Science Centre was more suited for the older age group. And I was thinking that, hey, how can we engage the younger audience to be more relatable to science? Because often we think about science is like, very abstract. And therefore, they actually come up with KidsSTOP, where we want to actually engage children to learn science through play. So at KidsSTOP, we get to notice a lot of like real life situations that's very familiar to children. Like we have like the supermarket, the construction site, we have a big dino centipede. So that all these things are, something that's discovery around the world that children are familiar, and then they can interact and play instead of some of the more passive gallery where you just see but you can't touch. But this is a lot of engagement for young children.
And I really think that's critical because parents, and hi Ophi, hi Limi, and just type in as you come in so I know that you're here. You are so right. I think kids have a bubbling and bursting with energy. And if we were to just tell them to just walk and sit down and study, it doesn't suit their learning style as much as if they can be hands-on and really actively, like what you said, engage, yeah?
Yeah, so when it comes to children, like the best part of learning is to add a lot of like multi-sensory stuff, about get them to move about, get them to like touch. That's actually how they learn best. It's through really their senses.
So I want to ask you, is there any, like, these are things that as parents we know, but is there any scientific research, that shows that play is important for a child's development? So as the parents here, they know that it's not just a good idea, but it's backed by some scientific facts.
Okay, so play often carries a negative connotation, as many associate it, with time spent that's very unproductive and without the element of learning. But the truth is totally reverse. There's like numerous of research that support that play is optimal to a child's development. And when we talk about child development, we cover like the 4 areas, which is PI. So P is physical, I is
Mm-hmm.
intellectual, E is
Mm-hmm.
emotion, and S is social. So when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about like maybe physical, it
Mm-hmm.
could be like, the gross motor skill, the hand-eye coordination. And when we talk about intellectual, it will be like problem solving skills, about language, about, numeracies, mathematics, as well as like for emotional, we talk about
Mm-hmm.
emotional strength. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, when children play, sometimes they don't get it right, but they just keep
Mm-hmm.
trying. So
Mm-hmm.
they actually promotes like resilience. At the same time, it improves like, increase your happiness level and reduce the stress level. And as to be social, which is we all know that play that comes with like collaborative play where we interact with parents, siblings, and as well as their peers. Yeah, so I guess it's like the role of science center because like we try to encourage children's natural curiosity and we want them to learn science through play and engage their senses so that they can cultivate their ability to approach the future with a creative problem solving skills.
I love your pie. In fact, I'm going to use that. So for you viewers out there who just joined us, PI stands for physical. So the kids are literally
Mhm.
physically engaged. I is intellectual, where it's not just physically perspiring, but the mind is also engaged. E is emotional. And I think that's such an important part, in a child's development, right? Because I think each of the intellectual and the emotional part cannot be observed, just on the outside, except through play. And lastly, social. I mean, we are all social beings, and being able to share or even play with someone will definitely set the stage for future collaboration or partnership and just EQ. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
So, for the parents out there, right, who like I get that science center is a wonderful place to go. Um, but if let's say parents are at home, during this COVID time, is there like a right way to play? For example, key principles. So, yeah, key principles that parents and educators should observe when we play to
Okay,
encourage this pie. Yeah.
there's no fixed formula of creating a good play, and play comes in many different forms. Like there's active play, there's no free play, there's collaborative play, there is purposeful play, which is play with intended outcomes. So regardless of what kind of play, I think the key principles that parents can do is number one is to create a safe environment so that children feel safe to explore and to experiment with the different materials. And
Mm-hmm.
I think number two, it will be have ample of resources. And we talk about like resources, it doesn't have to be expensive educational toys. It
Mm-hmm.
can be like recycled materials like cardboard box. Because during this whole COVID period, right, I saw people using cardboard box as like tunnels, as like car, as like houses, a lot of things very creative that they come up with. And I think I also hope that parents can also give children a choice to choose what they want so that they can be independent and then they have the experience of the freedom and most importantly they have see a connection between the choice that they make as well as the consequences or result of that choice. So sometimes for example like parents or like teachers obviously that the child is doing the wrong thing. We just want to step in and tell the child, hey, this is not how you play, confirm fail. But take a step back, let the child try, test, experiment. And then if the child fail, then the child will try to, figure out why did I fail and how can I actually like do it, without failing it. And I think the last one is being spontaneous. Like Junior, I saw one of your video that you were rolling down the slope right on the grass. I
Yes.
thought that was very remarkable. I urge that parents should also do that because play shouldn't just be like confined to a fixed timetable or confined to be like a playroom. And when we do something like what you do, being spontaneous and play with children, we give them a sense of opportunity of play doesn't have to be very fixated. It helps them to increase their flexibility in thinking and increase their imagination.
I love what you share, and yes, you're right. But I think I'm not one of the common moms, right? Because most parents and even I struggle with, like when they are younger, it's easy to play with those in preschool. But as they enter, formal education like primary school, the reality is that academic excellence becomes a yardstick that a lot of parents begin to sort of like urge our kids towards. So I want to just ask you, is there any role that parents can take on to encourage like positive play, not just when they are younger, but even like primary school, and all the way?
Well, I think parents have the responsibility to select the means of play for their children. And this is an opportunity for us to cultivate like purposeful play. So they not just play, but you will find an intended outcome that you want the child to achieve. So the type of toys or materials that the parents choose can help children to gain and make meaningful decisions. And normally we want to do is have open-ended materials. So like just now I mentioned was the cardboard box or simple things like, building block. It could be a snack bar, it could be a toy car, it could be anything that the child wants it to be. And if you're just running out of ideas, don't worry, because at Science Center, we created a whole Science O'Clock series during this stay-home period, where it's created specifically to facilitate this purpose, wherein like kids get to discover science through play by recreating experiments that's using simple household item, like for example the magic milk. All you need is just milk, soap, and you can just have like food coloring, and there you go, and whole new like science experiment that is fun. And of course, I think another one is that
Wait,
parents.
before you say, parents, I'm putting that link for this science experiment that Astra just shared. I've watched it. It's a very quick, how do I say? It's a very quick experiment. It's just 2 minutes, but it's just amazing. When I was watching it the first time, my I think 10-year-old daughter came, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's so fun! Can we do it?" And naturally, because it required so little materials, it was easy for them to just take on. And I thoroughly love, I've looked at the Science Center, the KidsSTOP channels, and I love the experiments because it's something that is so fast free and it keeps the kids engaged intellectually while doing something hands-on in the confines of home. So kudos to you people, to have put science experiments online. And parents, I will be putting a link so that you can subscribe to the Science Center's YouTube channel. Because they have a whole host. It's not just under KidsSTOP, but I just found out that even on Friday they have this weekly astronomy broadcast. That it's alternate lah, but for your older kids who want to not just stargaze but even understand the different constellations, I think it's just amazing. So I will be putting the the links in the channel. In the comments. So just go there, subscribe. And parents, if you have any questions with regards to play, do type in your questions so that I will be able to read them and just direct them to Astra. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Astra, you were sharing something earlier.
Well, oh yeah, we were talking. Oh yes. So, what were we talking about? Let me recap. About how parents can actually create purposeful play.
Yes, purposeful play.
So I think another one is to offer positive reinforcement. So I know as parents and us, we can be really, very tired, a long day of work. We don't necessarily have to engage in a children's play. So now we can let them play by themselves to be, independent. But when a child approach you, try to give them like positive reinforcement, like acknowledge them, express interest, ask question like, oh, why do you do this? Is there like, other ways that you can do it? And you can also state your observation, like for instance, the magic milk. Like you can say that, oh, I noticed that, you are doing like when you put blue and you put red, and what color do you think that, it turns out? It can share children about primary and secondary colors, and also like to make connections with what they learn. So like for example, the magic milk, like food coloring, it creates like a secondary color. But what if I use it with other forms of like materials? So for example, like painting or using like cellophane paper, where you create the same result.
Very, very interesting, and I love what you share. So to parents out there, I'm a busy mom, with 5 kids, but I think what Astra said about positive reinforcement is so true. So, like just yesterday, my kids were bored, right? So they were like, "Mom, can we paint?" And can we paint the wall? Okay, this is the wall in the house. I'm like, okay. In my mind, I had like the room, right? And then they started taking out all their paint. And then they wanted to paint my corridor, one of the walls. And I was like, okay, I meant in your room. And they literally, I think it occupied them for like close to 45 minutes. They literally painted their room walls. And why I bring that up, right, is aligned with what you are saying. Parents, we are so busy, and often we think that we need to keep the kids occupied. It's not necessarily true. All we need is to get them to be exploring on their own. And then when at the end of their activity, we just come in to positively reinforce to say, hey, that's a very nice painting, or in exactly what Astra was sharing, right? What if you mix this and that, to get them thinking for the next level? But other than that, I love the fact that your experiments online is something that kids can just watch, and it's entertaining enough, and the parents do not necessarily need to be there if they are busy, and there's new material every week, right?
Yes,
That
so like yeah, we will post it every week. And yeah, I really agree with you that it's okay to let children to get bored, because when they are bored, right, they tend to think of like new ideas, of try to be creative, like, what am I supposed to do, how can I do with like being like confined. So I think it's okay, but because often as parents we also feel like mom guilt, that I need to occupy my child. My child is feeling very boring and all. But it's okay to take a step back and let them also think of ideas to problem solve. How do I make myself to spend time more excitingly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love like what you say, and about giving them the responsibility to what you call that, to engage themselves, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And the owners, like, so for me, right, the onus is on them. So I think a few days ago, they were like, oh, let's do camping. And I'm like, okay, lah, so that they would just create their own make-believe world. And I think in there is where they thrive a lot, when we allow them to just take imagination off to new levels. Yeah.
Mm.
But I think the thing for quite a lot of parents is my kids are playing too much. So is there such a thing as playing too much?
Well, there are certain articles that say that okay, at this age your child should only play like for this amount, and then when your child hit like this age can only play at this amount of time.
Mm,
But I feel that every child is different, and every relationship between the parent and child is also unique. So it really depends on the family dynamic. And rather than asking whether it's my child, or children playing too much, the question that we can ask is whether are my children playing meaningfully. So
mm,
because as we mentioned, right, like play is most powerful when harnessed as a context of learning. So
mm,
if you notice that your child is actually acquiring certain skills in a process, and then you will know that meaningful play is in a progress. And if a child is old enough to actually engage in digital means of play, then you might want to actually limit to a healthy level. So because like although age appropriate media can have benefits for older children, especially when parents are involved, but the benefits of like real-time social interaction, be it like indoor or outdoor, are fundamentally the best.
mm.
Yeah, so I guess it really depends on the family. You shouldn't really like compare that. Oh, okay, because the person is doing like so much. Okay, I also have to do it. You try to pace yourself, and of course, understanding your child, whether is your child really like playing too much? Is he like missing meals? And when it's time to stop and have set a boundaries.
Mm, I agree. I think for me, right, like
Mm.
one litmus test that I use is, as long as they are enjoying and we are enjoying, I think that's, and there's positive engagement, and there is no addiction. I think that's meaningful. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, as long as there's an addiction, and whether if your family could cope it, then I think yeah, it really depends up to the family.
Okay, I hear you. So, okay, talking about playing, right? Like science is a very unique subject where we literally, when we think of science, the mad scientist image comes to mind where you pour and then there's an explosion, right? So it's very easy to have interaction, for science. But I'm just wondering for the parents out there, whose kids haven't even taken science, so for English, math, and Chinese. Hi, Carolyn. Okay, hi, Lisa. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, would you have any tips for these other subjects, that parents will be able to just adopt, so for the languages and for math, how do we make these subjects fun and engage the kids at home?
Okay, so really through play,
Mm-hmm.
because when children play through learning, it really retains that information better. So
Mm.
for example, like
Any
Chinese.
any scientific proof that it retains information, or it's just through experience?
Oh no, yeah, it's true. So there are a lot of like research study that talks about, how play is important. And right now, in the research studies, over there, it has been already like proven that play is important, and it helps to retain information, improve the executive functions, which is like the working memory of how you remember certain stuff. It also tests your flexibility when it comes to like cognitive thinking. So yeah, play is very important. And when it talks about like maybe like for example like Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
because like some people are struggling, how am I going to teach Chinese? Yeah. So instead of a rote learning, it could
Mm-hmm.
also be like incorporated in the everyday activities. Like for example, we could have like we have normally Chinese, they have like the flashcards. You can bring the flashcards out, and then you can show them, okay, like maybe it has like like bread or certain words, and you ask the child to actually, maybe how about doing a treasure hunt to find like the certain words so that they can associate better. It's not just memorizing, but memorizing in a fun way and connecting it to the real life everyday experience. So there are certain things that they can actually do with it.
I love what you say about connecting it with real life experiences or real life application. Because, I mean, to be very frank, Mandarin is a subject that in my family we hardly use. So that day I was talking to she's 8 years old. Yeah, my 8-year-old daughter. I was like, darling, the Chinese tutor, because COVID is, we're into phase 2. And then the Chinese tutor was like, hey, I can start coming. And she was like, oh, but mom, we don't even use Mandarin. And then I just had to draw the correlation. I was like, yes, I get. Yet, because as you increase your vocabulary, and then I began to share with her the nuances between the English language and the Mandarin language. And if you want to better express yourself, having a wider repertoire from a mixture of 2 different languages will make you a better communicator. And that's specific to her because she enjoys communicating. So I love what you share about making it applicable. But then for a lot of parents, I feel, and parents, if you have any questions, just type them in, yeah. I feel like for a lot of parents, I feel, honestly, we are not very fun. Like we seem to have lost our fun as we grow. And, I'm being very realistic here, okay? So, how, yeah, that's, any tips on how parents can, sort of like engage with their fun selves again so that learning becomes a joy. It's not monotonous, it's not boring, it's not drudgery, a dread, but it's synonymous with fun.
I think this is where we can actually learn from children, because they can make simple things fun, and then they can just laugh at very silly things that is it even like funny. So I think that's where we can really learn from children. And instead of children learning from us, we can
Right.
also do it like with them. And I think we should also try to sometimes you know just not to be so restricted by ourselves, give yourself a break, relax. I know there's a lot of burden that we have, family commitments, work commitments, so many things. I still have to do household chores. Yeah, so in that sense, try to think about it more creatively, like maybe, for example, like household chores. Why not you get your children to try it, to play a game there, who can actually pick up like the most number of hairs on the floor? Yeah, so certain things like this, yeah, we can try to engage the children through play and then also like helping us. And at the same time, just relax and learn from the children.
I love the two things that you said. The first one is like learning from the kids, yeah, and that's something that parents, even I, see my kids as my teachers, because when I allow them to teach me, interestingly, they become more interested. And this is real life experience. My Chinese cannot make it, right? So and then we learn together, so it's a shared journey. And as we go together, my daughter like, seriously mom, you don't know this, and then I just openly, authentically tell her, yes, I don't know, shall we look it up together? And that actually bonds us. So I love what you share about being open, like, I'm not yet there, and it's fine, for the subjects that I'm not conversant at. And yet for others, I could be her math tutor or her science tutor, so allowing that dynamics to shift so that we are really connecting with them, because I think that's the heart of it. And the other thing that you were sharing about, what was you shared two things. I think the second one was about being spontaneous. Is it the second one?
I think so. I can't remember.
Yeah. No, I'm just reading what one of this mom is saying. She uses flashcard for English and Chinese for 5 years old. So she actually gets him to describe what he sees. And from that, he actually makes proper sentence. So wonderful, Ophi. That's a very powerful way of engaging your child. Not just the boring flashcard way, but literally getting them to actively learn. Yeah. And I think there is no shortcut, because I've realized, so speaking from experience, my first daughter, I didn't spend a lot of time with her because I'm a new mom, don't know how to play a lot, but no flashcards, no, really, when she went to primary one, I remember she couldn't read. Yeah, really. And then, then with the second child, I got better. So I began to do a bit of flashcards. And then I remember the stark contrast. At primary one, she could read so much, and it makes a world of a difference to the child's confidence in primary school if they are like ahead of their peers or if they are lagging behind. And that's something that I realized parents can play an active role in.
Yeah, so yeah, we're talking about research. So also like research has also shown that when parents are more involved in children's learning, they tend to actually their learning tends to improve, and not just short term. Some of them longitudinal studies has also shown that it also have been proven that after like a few years they still help, that is still very beneficial. But don't worry, if you are still very busy, it's never too late to start engaging with your children's learning. Yeah, and also if you have peers, get the siblings to be engaged with one another too.
Yes, I love what you're sharing, and it's in line with what this other mom says. She said, let the kids act as your teacher and you their student, and raise questions that will be fun. Because I think you are right. I think learning is like, if I listen to what you tell me, is just one way. But the ability to regurgitate in my own words actually deepens that learning, and the retention goes way deeper. Correct? As
Yes.
we allow the kids to be our parents. Yeah. Okay. And then I wanted to ask you, okay, can you share in closing, more about Singapore Science Centre's online initiatives, for the busy parent or for the clueless parent who's not very imaginative, just point us to some resources so that we can, maximize, what you all have wonderfully put together.
So do visit our Facebook page or simply search like Science at Home, Science Center Singapore. So you get to see a whole series of activities where, everyone can participate in. So our activities are selected by age group, and many of them are also topical to offer viewers the options of choosing which they feel that's most suited to their personal preference. So we also have like a Science Center blog called I Saw the Science, and YouTube channel where we produce like
what?
I Saw the Science.
SCIENCE.
Yes.
Okay, I saw the sign. Okay.
Yeah, so for that blog, it's created more for young adults from like 18 to 35 years old. And also we also have like a YouTube channel where we also produce like original content to engage the public. So we hope that, through all these, curated online resources, families will be able to experience the wonder of science from within their home, stay safe, until we are able to welcome everyone back at Science Center.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So to all the viewers out there, Science Center has wonderfully curated an online library of wonderful, very interactive, and very simple to do experiments. So the milk experiment is one, but I think for older kids like DNA and even astrology, astronomy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, kids learn best through play. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think in summation, I just want to thank you, Astra, for spending time to be with us, and for you parents out there, for you to know that play is actually is a skill, right? Like in exactly what Astra was saying earlier, it's not just mindless play or just passively sitting down watching the screen, but it's actively engaging the mind to make meaningful connections so that cognitively they are engaged. So whatever form you choose with your children, have fun, and what comes out of that is not just learning but the bonding that is so critical in any parent-child relationship. So thank you, Astra. Any last
you.
word, any last advice to the parents out here?
No, I'm just really happy to be here to share like my experience and learning with everyone. And I'm also learning from everyone too, through, the comments and through Junior U. Yeah, so just very happy to be here.
Okay, so thank you, viewers. Thank you, Astra, and you all have a wonderful evening with your kids. See you. Bye.
Bye bye.